Welcome to the Ranyo and Duran podcast show. I'm Ranyo.
I'm Duran.
And I always have to say this, Duran. Have you seen any new movies, or are you going to see any new movies this week?
Okay, since the last episode, yes, I saw the Jungle Cruise movie, which was awesome. That was actually a couple weeks ago that I saw it, though.
And how did you think The Rock really? How did you think he was in that actual movie? Like, do you think he did very well? Because there were some critics that said that they're getting tired of The Rock. But I want to know your opinion on that.
I saw the same criticisms, and that was kind of weird. I thought he did fantastically. Look, it was very kid appropriate. It was very family friendly. The jokes were hilarious. Delivery was on point. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cast that they had. Now, it was particularly nice for me to see some of the Native Americans in there, but I would have liked to have seen more and more people actually from Brazil instead of what I'll say a fair portion of them look more like they got some people from like Mexico and Guatemala, and we're different. We are completely different. That's something a lot of people don't realize. Yes, there was mixing in Central America. There was some mixing, and some mixing as it spilt out toward the desert parts of the Southwest. But they're different. My brother-in-law from Ecuador, completely different stock. He looks different. The build is different. The skin tone is completely different. And that was the one criticism I would have said I had was, to me, I didn't see as much of that South American representation. I saw more the Central and North American influence as far as the people. But the movie was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. it.
You said Brazil. There were Brazilian people in the movie. I mean, was it in Brazil? Didn't look like Brazil to me, but are you saying there were Brazilian people in the movie?
I'm saying if they had more people from like Brazil or really the rest of, and by that I mean tribal people, such as, my brother-in-law and not, because it was attempting to be, yes, like the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And you didn't have the same admixture that you have today. There still were a fair number and like the tribes in there that were running around. I did like that they were paid for. That was beautiful that they were putting on that show. And I don't think a lot of people realize, and this ties in well with our topic today, that what they were mocking is actually fairly realistic with a lot of these Native American tribes throughout the Americas, both North and South America, as well as, of course, the few who remained in some of the islands, the pretending to do their supposed cultural stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, you get some tribes who actually have continued a lot of it, but the conquistadors especially did a very good job of eliminating a lot of it as far as Central and South America is concerned. And then in North America, they did a fair bit where they could. And then the United States came in and tried to finish that off. In particular, the point being a lot of that culture has been lost. And usually there are two ways you see it. And the first way is if it's for entertainment, which is what he was doing, where oftentimes it is over the top. And that's exactly what they had. And that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then the second way, of course, is you do have some tribes that continue to do more traditional things and their clothes and dance, et cetera, but as some people probably know, they've been getting killed through a variety of things, to include, of course, these people who are poaching. Oftentimes will go and they'll attack the Native American tribes, or if they're cutting down forests and things of that nature. Plus, in Central and South America, in particular, you're seen as being backwards. So most of the people there are mixed. Like, you don't see Mexicans running around saying, "Oh, I'm Native American." because, I mean, that's Mexico. That's pretty much everyone there, right?
Right.
Unlike the United States, where people wear that, big badge of honor, and you see a lot of people with no Native American claiming to be. In Central and South America, you don't see that because almost everyone has. And if you don't, you will in a generation or two. So there's no point. But instead, what you see is from an ethnicity, right? So if you are ethnically Native American, really tied toward a lot of that traditional stuff, it's seen in a very negative light, like you're backwards or stupid, that kind of thing. So that's another part of the reason why that culture has largely died off. But I mean, everything changes, right?
Are you saying that in some cases that they do act out for like the tourist case?
Yes.
Or because I had read something that I think Michael White said that in China that there is no monastery, there is no monks anymore, and that culture is lost, but they still have it there, and it's all for show for the tourists.
Right. Yes, you do see a lot of that. You see a ton of that. And it's funny because in either example, so be it talking about the Chinese, talking about Native Americans, also you see similar stuff in Japan and in Africa and a lot of different countries where in order to appease the tourists, oftentimes the people actually play to the stereotypes and do things that simply never were or that don't make sense just because it's what the crowds expect. And if you don't do that, then, everyone's heads explode.
Yeah, that was kind of a very interesting subject because I didn't know that was actually going on. But, when you think about it, a lot of things are not going to be the same as they used to be. So
and that's exactly right. And that is important. The perfect example of this really is Europe, right? So all of these people sit there and talk about, Europe is the epitome of being modern and so on and so forth. Well, Europe used to have a very different culture, a very different dress than they do today. They have just changed it over time. And I think it's important. I'm sure I'll get a fair bit of hate for this, but I think it's important not to let the past weigh you down. And what that means is I'm not going to run around with feathers in my hair just because my ancestors did.
Right.
I'm not going to run around with the beads just because my ancestors did. And that's not hating on anyone who does. But that's just not who I want to be and what I want to be for a variety of reasons. I don't see a reason for it. I still hunt. I do a lot of things. I maintain the stories. I have the stories and I do a lot of that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that I have to dress the way that my ancestors dressed. And even in my case, it would beg the question, which ancestors, right?
Right, yeah.
The Mexican Native Americans look nothing like, and really any of the North American Native Americans that I have ancestry. So which of the Native Americans would I dress as? Which culture should I embrace? And then, I have my mother's side. Well, why can't I embrace that culture too? Cultures should evolve, but they should evolve when they want to at a pace that they want to without being forced. And that's one of the bad things, as they had the re-education camps, right? So they would abduct Native American children and then they would, the phrase was, kill the Indian, not the man.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And so it was, and that was purposely designed to destroy the language, the culture. That's wrong. I want to make it very clear. I'm not advocating anything like that. And that's happened throughout history to pretty much every culture. But at the same time, just because that happened doesn't mean I'm going to run around. It doesn't make sense. Maybe to do like a dance or a celebration to keep that part of the culture alive, but certainly not every day. But you do see a lot of people, that's where they make their money from. Every single day they go out and they do the dances, and they only ever do the stereotypical dance. They'll do like rain dances and all this other stuff, as if every other culture didn't have a rain dance.
So, something that I wanted to touch on is, since we're talking about the Indians, just to be clear, just two different things I want to ask you about. So, the Indians are part of the Native American culture, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so something about, like, in Ohio that kind of bothers me is the Indian man on, for the the baseball team.
Yeah, they have that and the Redskins. That's another good example. Yeah. So, okay, this leads perfectly into the discussion. All right, so let's hold that for 1 second. Okay. Let's talk about The Rock. So, and I don't mean The Rock.
Not The Rock from the movie. Yeah, that's a perfectly good transition.
That's right. God. That's right.
Yeah.
So, Wisconsin actually just a few weeks ago removed a rock outside of the University of Wisconsin. And when I say rock, I mean it's a glacial rock, so a big giant boulder. Like, I think they said it was around 45 tons, right? And the reason why they removed it is because it had a nickname. And its nickname was, I'll just say, Black Person Head. And fill black person in with another N-word, and it's not the N-E N-word. It's the N-I N-word. But they actually removed The Rock from the university, saying that The Rock was hurtful and racist. I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
First of all, how can a rock be racist? I mean, a rock is not a living thing, is it? A rock is not really a living thing, so how can it be racist? Do it have a mind?
Right.
Can it think of its own? Can it get up and walk?
Right. That's why I was laughing.
Yes, because it's this hysterical that they feel that the rock can consider itself racist in any way. It's not a living thing. It doesn't have thoughts. It doesn't think for itself. It doesn't move. It doesn't do anything unless you move it with force.
Right.
However, that kind of disturbs me because that's kind of lets you into the mind of America,
right,
and people in general, that they're putting this negativity on something that's not alive.
Right.
And I don't understand it. So it bothers me, like, because they're always trying to place different things or different issues onto other things instead of what the real issue is. The real issue is the people in America.
Right.
It's not the rock. It's not the trees. It's not the plants. It's not the animals. It's human and human society. So that, when I read that article, it kind of bothered me because I was like, what the hell does this have to do with anything?
I completely agree. And the two things are really highly related, right? Is talking about the Cleveland Indians, the Washington Redskins, and then, of course, this rock. And what people are doing, a rock can't be racist. You're spot on. The rock can't be racist. Just because some idiot nicknamed something in a certain way doesn't mean that the rock hurts you or that the rock is racist. It means the nickname is racist. The name is racist. Change the name of the rock. We didn't have to, they actually had to request permission from the local Native American tribe in order to move the rock because it was within 15 feet of a ancestral burial ground.
Did they say, I don't remember if I was seeing that, did they say, did the community name that rock? Who named it?
It was apparently a nickname that was in a newspaper from the 1920s.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I'm just left going, all you have to do is stop using that name. It's not like, if they put it on a street sign, it's not on a street sign. It's not a city's name. Meaning it's not hard to just stop using that name. It's not a hard thing to do.
How about not using any derogatory names towards anybody? And that would make it better because maybe African Americans felt that there was some type of way because of what it was named. But really, it's not the rock. It's the people that named it. So, like you said, all they needed to do was change the name But even if you change the name, it's not going to change the narrative. So that's the problem with the people. It's not going to change the narrative of what they feel. But like you said, just change the name. Why move it? Why? And especially if it's a, let's say, especially if it's a meaningful thing to that community, why do that?
Right. And they're actively using the rock for educational purposes because it is a glacial rock. And if you've ever seen glacial rocks, they're absolutely massive. Oftentimes they have a lot of fossils and things of that nature, either in them or on them. You see the imprints of various sea creatures. They're really neat. I've seen a lot and climbed on a lot. They're just absolutely phenomenal pieces of nature. And in a lot of cases, by the way, Native Americans had special names for them and had special things special meanings tied to the different rocks and locations because they were important. I mean, a big giant rock sticks out in a flat plain. A big giant rock is a marker, and in many cases you'll see stories tied to these kinds of boulders and rocks, and so I think, to me, it's like, I don't understand why people were so reticent to change the name of the Cleveland Indians and to change the logo. And I don't know why the same thing was true with the Native American, or with the Washington Redskins and the Native American depiction thereof, and all of these other teams. And I understand doing something out of reverence for someone. That makes sense to me. But when you do something that is supposedly out of reverence at the same time as you're slaughtering them, I think maybe that questions claimed that it was done out of reverence. But you have to remember, when the Cleveland Indians got their name, what was going on to Native Americans. When the Washington Redskins got their name, what was going on to Native Americans, and how they were generally portrayed. I'm not sure I completely buy the claim that it was out of reverence. But even if it were, why? Why do you need the big goofy head?
This is gonna be, people may not like this, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but seeing that really hurts. And like I say, I'm not full-blooded Native American, or not do have Native Americans in my family, so that kind of hurts, to see things like that, because they don't even know how they're feeling and how they see it when they're looking at this shit up, on the TVs or the logos on the hat. That is very derogatory. That's almost like if they would instead, I don't know what the name of the child, but just say they have the Cleveland black faces, where there's blackface and you have big red ass lips and white. Right. That's silly. Just literally fucking silly. That is not good. And if they were going to do something like that and they wanted to contribute, why give a silly ass face?
Right.
Why not make something that really, pretty much details everything about the Native Americans? Why not have something truly that looks like, glorifying than actually derogatory? It really looks silly and it does not look good. And I don't like it. I've never liked it.
I agree. I remember as a child, I would sit there and question it. Now, my grandmother's response was very, very, very common, especially, and very Native American. And it was largely sarcasm. And it's something so I'm actually a member of a few different Native American societies and groups and things tied toward Native Americans, for example, in the sciences and stuff like that. And it's funny because we use sarcasm a lot. And it was just interesting to me because that's generally how she would brush it off, but she would also brush it off by... So she's from the generation where they still had the signs of the whole, no Mexicans and no dogs and stuff like that. And that was pretty common back then. And they lived in a very cornbread part of the country. And by that, I mean, let's put it this way. I don't know why Mexicans, a group of Mexicans or Native Americans would go and move to that area because it doesn't get whiter than there.
Yeah.
But they did. And I've always questioned that. But as a result, I think while she generally got along very well in the community, they moved actually to a different spot. After they moved, they got along pretty well with the community. There was a lot of that just sarcasm still in her, and she would be very, very jaded whenever discussing anything like the Redskins or the Indians, especially regarding changing them. That she was always very jaded about that and about the possibility of even changing it.
But they're not even Redskins. Like, I know. Like if that's the case, then can you tell that the other side would be more red than anything?
Okay, so that's the thing I've always sat there and I've said to my wife, I've never understood saying Redskins, because so if you've ever seen your eastern and western seaboard Native Americans are actually extremely pale. In fact, they are so pale that they blended in with the European population when the Europeans came over. And that was actually part of the reason why the Europeans, the English, had trouble enslaving them, because the English actually tried to enslave them. And for fairly extensive periods of time, Native Americans were the most enslaved population living in the United States colonies, what became the United States. So those colonies. And what they found was there were a few different problems with that. First and foremost, when the Native American slaves escaped, it was very hard to find them because they just blend in with the Native American population, but also they could somewhat blend in with the European population, especially because Europeans have a lot of different, looks and stuff. Like, people sit there and talk about the Native American nose. I know exactly what they're talking about. I know exactly what they're talking about. But there are plenty of Europeans who have a similar enough nose. And really what they were really talking about is more of that Western Native American nose. The Eastern Seaboard, they don't look like that. Long story short, when you wound up, if you look at someone who's like me, so I'm more what you see from both Plains Indians, and by Plains Indians, I'm not including people like the Apache, the Kiowa, and the Comanche, because they came from Canada, where Native Americans are also very pale. When I'm talking about Plains Indians, I'm talking about a different group, and we wind up also looking like Central Native Americans. And that I'd say we're more, I don't know, what would you say? Like tan, like canvas tan.
Yeah.
I look more like canvas, but anyway. And then so you have white, you have canvas tan, and then you have the South Americans who are their own. I mean, they're what I would call a more earthy tone. Like my brother-in-law, and actually one of my sons, he has that South American tint, and it's a more earthy look to it. Mm-hmm. But I've never seen a red Native American. The only people I've seen who turn red are Europeans. Europeans turn red like lobsters.
Yeah. I was going to say that I have never seen a red Native American. And that's kind of why I was like, where's the red coming from? The red throws me off.
I don't know. Like when I tan, I don't look red like a lobster. I don't tan very easily. It's very hard for me. But if I'm out in like the equatorial region all day, every day, I'll get like a dark purple tone to it, but I never turn red. The only people I've ever seen who turn red, I mean, Europeans always turn red. They turn beet red. They look like lobsters or a crab. That's the best I can describe. So I don't understand where this term came from.
Well, if that's the case, here's another thing that bothers me when you look at ballots or application and different stuff. You don't ever see any other people, like, you don't see Europeans or anybody's colors, white or, red or blah, blah, blah. You always see minorities, black. Black
Right.
African American. Why can't it just be African American? Or they say the Japanese or Asian, most Asian people are yellow, and
Right.
why everything has to be defined by color?
But yeah, that's a good question. And to add to that, I've never understood the yellow, and I know you haven't either.
Yeah, nah, I don't get it. They don't look yellow to me.
No, no. Where did that come from? What?
I have no idea. I mean, is there anybody that's green? Do you know anybody? Have you seen any human that's green?
No. Now I will say so. Most people from Africa are like you. They're that darker brown, right? And I have seen some people from a very select part of Africa that actually look black. So I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I can kind of get where that comes from. And white, I get where that comes from. But where the hell did the other ones come from?
I don't know. But why do we have to even put color in this conversation? Like, I hate to see Black African American, but I don't see any other color scheme on there. Like, why? You know, like, if that's going to be the case, like, again, everybody should have a color.
Yeah.
But then again, I think the whole color thing is stupid. Forget color. You know, again, the way I see people is they're all human.
Yeah.
It's not about your color and what race you came from and what area you was from. Who gives a shit? It's just, we're all human. We all are the same. We walk the same. We talk maybe different, but still, we all
still
speak.
Use the mouth and tongue.
Yeah, we all do. You know, we're all human. We all are just similar. You know, so like they make us feel like we're aliens. Minorities are just alienated away from society.
Well, it's interesting because when we were talking 2 times ago, I believe it was, we discussed Japan a little bit, and I mentioned how you and I would not be well treated, and I know that having lived there, wouldn't be well treated there, and that's one of the funny things is the Japanese are extremely actually racist. I mean, the Japanese are truly racist. It's enshrined in law kind of deal racist.
That's crazy.
And their society doesn't even recognize, by and large, the racism that exists. But if you aren't Japanese, the next best thing would be being European, and then everyone else is just in the bag of subhuman. And like they call the Okinawans dirt and stuff like that, right? So all of that good stuff. So the United States isn't that bad, and that's good. But I think part of the problem is we spend a lot of time focusing as a nation, and more now than when I was growing up and then when you were growing up, on, you're black. Your ancestry is this, and we're going to define you this way. And your ancestry is that, and we're going to define you this way. And a large part of it seems to be trying to be special.
Yeah.
And to me, and they say, oh, well, we're celebrating our differences. Well, if we're celebrating our differences, then why are you grouping me?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I don't think one is more superior than the other. You know, I think that a lot of people want, and that's this is going to tie back into some of the things that we talked about a lot, you know, basically on the phone and in person and stuff like that. So a lot of this ties back to, let's think about when we worked at Highland, how everybody wants to be the superior person,
right.
And nobody can just fit in. Like nobody can just fit in the mold. Like everybody wants to be the chief. And that's the same way I think with society. Like everybody wants to be top dog instead of just fitting in your place, know your role. Like everybody has a role in life. You know, everybody's not going to be in this level or that level or this chart. Like everybody's in different points of their life. Doesn't mean that you can't get to that point in life, but I just feel like everybody's trying to be the superior person. Right. And that's why you see some of these issues or jealousy or hatred. And especially when it comes to color in the, you know, America and other places, it's like, oh, we're more superior than you because we're the superior race, because we're this and that. Who gives a shit? I don't care who's superior. I don't care about none of that. I just want to live my life, the way I define it, not because you want me to be defined as this.
Right. Well, I think it gets really complicated very quickly because there seems to be this lack of acknowledging the fact that most, especially in the United States, most people are mixed.
Yep.
And honestly, even outside of the United States, most people are mixed. Even in Japan, which likes to pretend like it has a homogenous environment, Japan is not homogenous. They have a lot of people of Korean and Chinese and Taiwanese and Okinawan, Ryukyu people, et cetera, descent living inside of there who have mixed with, willingly and unwillingly, mixed with the Japanese. And we see the same thing here in the United States. You have a lot of people who have mixed willingly and unwillingly. And I think, so when I was growing up, they didn't focus much on race in education. And they certainly didn't focus as much on bucketing people. And it was, of course, when I lived overseas, it was, you're an American. That's the thing that always confuses people. You're an American. You're an American. It doesn't matter who or what you identify as personally. You're an American. And all Americans are the same. I think, so we talk about, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, and then all of these movements that have come up since. You, of course, Native American Lives Movement. You had the Syrian Lives Movement, which didn't work out, actually, because they got attacked by the Black Lives Matter movement. So did the Native American Lives Matter movement, even though theirs was Native Lives Matter too. I know, because I was there in the early days of that. We were horribly attacked and told it wasn't our time and that we need to sit down and shut up.
Wait. Black Lives Matter movement said that?
Mm-hmm.
That is some bull crap.
Yeah, they even said it on CNN.
To me, most people may be mad about that, but I think all lives matter if you really want to be honest.
Right. I agree with you. And I said that. And when we say that, we're not saying it from the, I don't like the Black Lives Matter movement, so all lives matter. Right. We're talking about it from, we're all human. All lives matter.
Yeah. And this goes back to, here's my thing. If people don't want us to be put in a bucket and judged, want us to be judged, then why are we judging other people? Because to me, that goes back to another form of racism. Okay, because it's a Black Lives thing and all of this stuff is happening to Black African Americans, doesn't mean it's not happening to other people.
Right.
We're all put in this particular bucket, even minorities, but I'm just saying in general, everybody's life matters. It's not about Black Lives Matter. It's more than this. It's a greater cause. And I think that they missed the point. And this is where they missed the opportunity, because I'm like, you're talking about Black lives, but what about Native Americans? What about Japanese, Koreans, and people that's living out in these third world countries? You don't think their lives matter too?
Right. Well, you're exactly right. And I think that's one of the travesties here is we have somewhere in the 2010s and early 2000s, they started really getting into this whole group identity thing. And they really went for it. And that, I think, is what ruined a lot of this, because so the real issue was what? It was police brutality and police violence.
Yep.
And I have said from the get-go, I've sat there and I said, let's tackle the real issue here, because police kill white people. Police kill Black people. Police kill Mexicans, Hispanics, so on and so forth. It's not just one group getting killed. And actually, if you look at the numbers, in almost all years, more white people in the raw died at the hands of police than any other group, but more Native Americans per capita. But having said that, we make up less than 3% of the population, and that's including mixed people like me. So you kill one of us, and that's like killing a million other people, statistically speaking, if you're going, per capita. So numbers are fun to game, and they're really hard to game. They're really easy to game, I should say. And So I sat there and was like, well, let's talk about police brutality. Let's talk about police brutality. And I actually got called a white supremacist for saying, I want to talk about police brutality. Yeah, dead serious. And I said, do you realize I am Native American? And then the person was like, I'm your ally. I don't know why you're so mad. I'm your ally. And I was sitting there going, you spend all this time telling all these supposedly white people that they need to sit down and give up their place at the table for people like me. But when I say something you don't like, you shut me down. And then when I say, no, you can't shut me up, you start doing this whole, I'm your ally, why are you so mad baloney. I don't get that. I really don't.
I don't get it either. Like I said, I think people are missing the point, and they're, like you said, they're turning into a group thing, and it's not about that. Okay. And like you said, there are more people dying, and you may not see it. We don't see it every day.
Right.
But there's more people dying in, different races than you may see in just Black African Americans.
It just doesn't get the headlines.
Right. And, I think just people need to just, first of all, if you're really curious, do your homework. Second of all, I think, again, it's a greater cause that needs to be heard, or a greater voice that needs to be heard than just one race.
Right.
Everybody matters. It doesn't matter who you are. Yes, Black people are important just as much as anybody else, but I think all lives matter because we're all human at the end of the day. And if we're only going to subject ourselves to one race, then what makes us better than the people that are judging us? To me, I feel like that makes us the same.
I completely agree. And and we do the same thing to police to some degree. You'll have a lot of people who sit there and they go, oh, well, all police are bad. And you say, no, I mean, there are plenty. So one of the reasons why I live actually in the city where I do is, first and foremost, when I was first looking to move over here, I got told by some what would have been future coworkers where not to live. And it's sad. It is sad that they have to sit there and tell you, don't move here, don't move here, and don't move here, because it won't work well for you. But I'm in a place where they're actually, for the most part, very accepting. And, every day I would walk my children. Every day I walk my children to and from school. And we would pass police officers who were sitting there trying to make sure people went the speed limit and all this other stuff. And every day I would wave at them. They'd wave at me. We'd say hi. A nice, quick exchange. But I kid you not, that little exchange, I mean, that makes me a human. That makes them a human. I mean, they were nice people. I've had conversations with actually all of them since then. And those police were nice. And there are certainly police who aren't. And there are certainly racist police. And I mean, we've talked about them a little bit here. I know you've had your experiences. You shared some of them here. I've shared some of mine. There are police who are racist, some police who are phenotypists. They're just like everywhere else. And here's the thing. You'll hear people say, oh, well, but the good cops aren't good because they don't force those other cops out. And I say, well, but the same argument was used against Black people, for example. Oh, well, all Black people are terrible because you aren't stopping. You should be stopping the drug dealers who are ruining your area and the gangbangers who are ruining your area because you're not. That makes all Black people bad. And I'm going, why are you doing this? How does that make sense? Maybe they can't. Maybe there are a lot of pressures on them. There are so many reasons, but more importantly, one bad apple doesn't mean all of them are bad. That whole one apple spoils the bunch kind of deal, I mean, that doesn't work with people. It can work with people in so much as one person who's trying to spread misinformation and lies, which we can get into, can definitely spoil the bunch. But one bad police officer doesn't mean all police are bad. One bad, African-American, who's a gangbanger and selling drugs and shooting people doesn't, you're not a member of the Bloods or Crips, right? Well, why not? I mean, there are Black people who are members of it, so all Black people must be. You're all evil. It's the same mentality.
But a lot of people don't understand, and when they go back, they don't understand why the Crips Bloods were actually started. You know, and it wasn't started to be that sort of thing where it was supposed to be violence and killing their own people. It was actually started to protect the neighborhood at that time period. But people don't understand why it was started. But then it became a little bit more. And then when people really, if you really want to get any deeper why the culture is the way it is, and this is going to be in all different cultures, not just Black African American, it's just that people don't understand why people like the drug dealers or maybe across the street do what they do. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's still a trap. But, you know, you have white people saying, well, why are they doing it? And why don't you do this? Like, tell me why is it hard for a Black man to go get a job today? Even back then, why is it so hard that we get profiled to try to go get a job? Because I don't look like that person, I can't even get an IT job. At one point, it was so bad that I couldn't get an IT job. I had to wear fake glasses and dress up like a nerd just to actually fit in and get a job. That is bullshit. Right. And then to say too, well, why are they doing this and why are they doing that? Because maybe that's their only way of income. You know, if I'm not saying that that's right. I'm saying that you can't judge people without knowing the story, the background, what's going on.
Yes. Well, and to your point, so if I dressed with a war bonnet on, I don't know why I would, because it wouldn't actually make sense.
Right.
But if I dressed with the war bonnet on, would you hire me? You know, and in my industry, there are a fair number of people who would be like, no, because to your point, we don't meet the stereotype. And I don't know what our industry is really bad about stereotypes, very bad about it. And their stereotypes aren't normal ones, though. It's oftentimes either one, how nerdy do you look, or two, how, I'm going to say, strange do you look? And not strange as in a guy with a war bonnet. I mean strange as in you dyed your hair 20 colors and, you know, you wear piercings all over, you know, that kind of thing. That kind of strange. It's how unique are you? I don't get that.
And that doesn't mean that's even professional, especially in our field, to go work with clients, you know. And it's to me, it's not really about what you look like. Mm-hmm. You know, it should be about do you have the capability to do the job? It's not about what you look like. There's some really, really smart people, right? But you will never ever get to see their true talent because people look at them. Oh, they don't look like this guy. They don't look like the Verizon guy, so we're not going to hire him. And I'm like, I can be the smartest person you've ever met and do all the things that you were hoping for, and then you're going to turn me down because I'm Black, I look like a gangster, or blah blah blah. Like, what does my hair have to do with anything?
Right.
Like, I have dreadlocks. So what does that have to do with me being able to do my job? And it's not like I got them in up some type of crazy looking style or look crazy. Now, I ain't going to say that. There's some stuff that looks really weird and not really good and professional. Right. But I'm saying that what does that have to do with me doing my job?
Right. Right. Yes. There obviously is a point. Well, we're definitely not talking about someone who looks unprofessional. But people have to recognize you should be allowed to dress so long as you don't look bad any way you want. Yeah. And by bad, you know what I mean. And everyone here knows, you know, some people, oh, well, that's so subjective. No, everyone knows what we're talking about here. And have your hair the way you want, so long as it's not unkempt. And see, that's one of the big things is you'll have, I mean, you remember our manager when we were over at Highland, her hair looked terrible. It looked horrible because, and it was because she clearly never put any time into it. It was
she woke up out of the bed and it was just like, boop, yeah, I'm just going to get on the call. And I'm like, what? This is not professional at all. I mean, she had her cat look crazy. She looks crazy. And it looks like she never really did anything but just lay down and then get up and get on the meeting and not even take much care of her looks or appearance. Again, it's a lot of different issues, like I said, with even in our industry and other industry, and things like I feel that the issue with the Olympics or the different wrestling federation in different places where they're making kids cut off their hair.
Right.
And you can't. What does that have to do with the sport.
Right. Right. And like we discussed, in the case of that unfortunate wrestler, I'm sorry, but you know what? We discussed it last time. I said it. Glima, Viking wrestling, long hair. I mean, they've got that Viking hair and it's all the way down. And these guys are wrestling. It can be done. You can wrestle with long hair in a respectable manner. And you know what? If you have long hair and someone accidentally, they're on it a little bit, that's on you, obviously, because it's your hair. But the other person is going to be respectful. And if they aren't being respectful, if they are abusing that to get an edge in the sport, and that's not allowed in the sport, then don't go after the person with long hair. Go after the other guy who's doing it on purpose.
Which is a disqualification.
Yes.
And even near, why do you have referees then?
Right.
Why do we have referees if they're not actually doing their job?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like in MMA, you have women that have hair. Are they supposed to cut their hair off bald because they have hair? They literally tell them to braid their hair.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just ridiculous. Again, these are just statements or different areas of racism that I see that I feel is a race card. Like it's an issue. And it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you go from The Rock, and as a disclaimer, we're not talking about The Rock. Again, I just want to disclaim that we're not talking about The Rock. We're talking about, a rock. So, from The Rock all the way to, race and groupings and it's just hysterical. Like, this is ridiculous. Grow up.
And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to be like France? And what I mean by that is, so France has, for decades, very actively worked to ensure all French citizens and any French denizens, so people living in France, are French. They look French, they sound French. French as a language is standard. Unlike Spanish, and I don't care what anyone says, I will tell you Spanish is not standardized. You go from one Spanish country to another, and they have no clue what you're talking about. You go to Mexico, and you ask them, hey, when are you going to open? And they say, momentita, cita. You'll be like, oh, well, just in a minute. He said cita, so it'll just be a little bit, just a little moment. No. In Mexico, cita is long time. Nobody knows when. Who knows? He's going to open up whenever he feels like it. But but that's France. They want everyone to look the same, and we're not talking about skin color. We're talking about they have the same exact dress. They have the same exact culture. They talk the same. They sound the same. So in France, no headdress. It doesn't matter if it's religious or not. No. You're running around and you have anything like that on your head, they're going to go after you. You can't have them in schools, and they have constitutional bans and all of this other kind of stuff. Do we want to really go like France? No. But our industry is doing it to itself. It's literally doing, and we do that, like you said, in sport. We do that all over the place. It's the same. It is no different and no better than what France is doing. Just we aren't doing it through federal law. And I'm sorry, but I'll be honest. If you're going to be racist or ugly toward me, I'd rather you do it at the federal level, because at least I know where I stand across the whole country. If you're doing it here and there and here and there, and not only just different locations, but different sports and different this or different that, then I have no clue until I get there that all of a sudden you guys are just a bunch of flaming, culturalists, racists, xenophobes, whatever it happens to be, as the case may be. And I would just rather know your whole country is that way and to stay out of it.
Now, what if it was a law against being racist? Like that wouldn't change a lot of things, but then you would have a all-out war.
So it's funny. I mean, Congress tried something like that, and it's if you look at the Constitution, they enshrine it from a federal level, but the federal laws, there's still plenty of racist, antiquated federal laws out there, and that's supposed to filter down to the states. But I mean, so I guess the problem would then be, so let's say we make being racist illegal or racist speech illegal. Then who's to say what's racist? Who gets to define that? And we see the same thing with other communities too. So looking outside of race, if we sat there and did like Canada and tried to legislate language so that you have to use someone's preferred pronoun, things of that nature, or else you can face a fine, be fired from your work if you're a government worker, and all this other stuff. The problem with that is, number one, you can't legislate respect. Number two, all of that stuff is such a moving target. Who gets to define it? Who gets to decide it?
Right.
I mean, we no longer say Negro. If you say Negro, that's a fighting word in a lot of places, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. But we don't say Negro anymore. So are we going to say that it's racist to use that word, or are we just going to say we as a culture, we as a society are not going to be a part of that? I'd prefer that. I would prefer the culture and society get its act together and just say we won't tolerate it rather than legislate it.
Right. No, I agree. That's a good point, exactly, because that would be a whole out fight or war.
Mm-hmm. It would be.
About, yeah. No.
I mean, we already know two sides that would go to war with each other over that. And it's silly in so many ways because, I'm sorry, but if you're defending being a racist, then you're wrong, obviously. But at the same time, I mean, come on. Do we really have to split the country in two? Which is what would happen. It would be in two over something where, they'd say stuff like, oh, well, freedom of speech. And I understand freedom of speech, and I get that it's important. I'm against burning and banning books. I'm a big fan of Know Your Enemy. I read all kinds of books. I've read tons of books. I've read a lot of highly offensive books that I sat there and I put it down and I was like, damn, that book was that book was bad. I never want to read a book like that again. But I'd rather know that there are crazy people out there and know what their crazy minds are thinking than just banning books. I'll give you a good example. Have you seen Gone with the Wind or read the book?
I didn't read the book, but I did see the movie. And it was a while back.
Okay, that actually is one of my favorite books and movies. And that may sound really weird, but if you actually read it, it's absolutely beautiful. Or if you pay attention when you watch the movie, because it's the same exact themes and motifs are there. It's absolutely beautiful. Ashley and his wife represent the old South, the slave South. Rhett Butler is the North.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Whereas, of course, Scarlett O'Hara, she is the South in the present time, as it moves through time. She's the South in the present time. And, oh my goodness, how stunning that is. Because what you see is, and people are like, oh, well, she used words that, I'm not going to repeat because the name of the rock, she used words like that rock's name and stuff like that. So we're going to ban the book for racist language. And I'm going, you can't whitewash history. People used that word. People used that word and they had slaves and they abused their slaves. And they're like, oh, well, the other reason they say is, oh, well, it glorifies slaves. It has the, Aunt Jemima. It has the Aunt Jemima imagery. And I'm going, no, you completely missed the point there. So most of her slaves left and abandoned the farm when the war starts, which is actually something that happened. So most of them ran off. Some of the slaves stayed. Some of them stayed. And if you pay attention to the ones who stayed, she was still hitting them. She was still yelling. Scarlett was still yelling at them. She was treating them poorly and saying horrible things about them and drove them off. And that is the story of the South. that is exactly what happened in the South. The book wasn't glorifying it. There were slaves who stayed. And the other kicker is the book and movie accurately portray the fact that after slavery officially ended, and it's a tricky subject in and of itself, but what many people think of as the end of slavery, and that's with the defeat of course, the South, after slavery ended, many of the former slaves just became sharecroppers, and were forced to work the same land that they had already been working. Just supposedly they were getting paid, but they weren't, So they were still enslaved, and that is portrayed in the book and the movie, and people don't understand it. And you notice how at the end of the day, despite the fact that Rhett, the North, absolutely positively loved the South and wanted to make it work, being Scarlet, it still didn't work. And they had this child, and the child, of course, who dies represents the new ideal America, the America that both, and Scarlet, of course, in the beginning was, I don't know how much you paid attention, but Scarlet in the beginning, she didn't care about the child at all. And that child was the unified United States. And it's the symbolism is so stunning. And you see what happens is the unified United States free of slavery, the unified United States free of that bigotry and hatred dies because she goes and gets killed in a horse riding accident. And at that point, the North and South become distant again and split again. And that is segregation. That is Jim Crow. That is the rise of the KKK. That is what Gone with the Wind is about. That is the entirety of the book. But if you ban the book, you don't understand that. If you ban Mein Kampf, you don't understand what the mind of a man who convinced an entire country to do horrible, horrible things and to start a world war. And you would be foolish to ban such things because you are then guaranteed to run through it again, all over again.
And then have to write the whole book over again.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I say, I just feel that this needs to stop. But the only way it's going to actually ever stop, and it may never stop because people are ignorant, is, just getting rid of this whole color and race thing and overall. To me, everybody's human.
Yes.
There's to me, I mean, you can say that maybe there's a race, but to me, there's just none of that. If we can see each other as just human and as one, and then I think we can get past that, but we're never going to see that. It's never going to happen. Like I said, it goes back to what we were saying. Everybody wants to be the superior race or the superior being. And, we're all the same. There's no way you could be more superior than me.
That's right. Well, and that's where the Afrocentrism is coming from. That's where the Eurocentrism is coming from. The Chinese do it too. I mean, all kinds of cultures do this, where you rewrite the history so that you're the center of the world, the most important thing. That's exactly what that is. I want to be special. I want to be unique. We gave the world the gift of light.
Yeah. You gave the world the gift of light, all right. Hey, what about the orange man in the hot water?
That's right. Okay. All right. We have to talk about that. That's so funny. All these people are trying to bring them back and talking about wanting them back.
It's ridiculous. Ever since Joe Biden's been in office, as we were talking about, they feel like Joe Biden is not he's not enforceable. They feel like he's weak, but they said the same thing about Obama. And he was a part of that Obama administration. So they're basically saying he's a weak president, and that basically Trump needed to come back and step in office because he was more enforceable and he wouldn't take none of this stuff and all of that. Like you said, Biden's just continuing. It's a continuation of what Trump was already doing.
Yes.
So it's just crazy that they're posting things and saying that, hey, we need to get Trump back in office. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you're exactly right. If you actually look at the policies that are being laid out, almost to a T, he is just continuing what Trump did. And that goes for the deportations, locking people up. That goes for a whole slew of stuff. Afghanistan, that wasn't Biden, that was Trump. Trump actually had already put that in motion. Biden didn't really have much of a choice. He'd actually already delayed the withdrawal by many months beyond what was agreed upon. So, and you have a lot of people who say, well, the United States didn't consult its allies, its NATO allies, before leaving. Actually, that's something Europe's now throwing around. But that's okay. You know what? The United States probably didn't, because it was Trump. But they knew about it, and they've had many months, and we delayed for many months. So Europe doesn't really have much of a leg to stand on there. But everyone, let's bring back Trump. I think the real problem is we got so used to a president who was always in the news that when you don't have one who's always in the news, you can forget he's there, and it's almost like he's not doing anything.
Yeah, no, that is true. It's great that he's not always in the news. I don't want to see the president every day.
I agree.
And the way Trump, it's like Trump was every day with something. It was something embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay. It was not good.
Yes.
It made us look like the joke, the laughing stock of the world. And that's not what you want America to be, presented as. So I'm happy. I'm happy not being a laughing stock. You see what that guy, like, you go across to another country and you're like, yeah, your president, that Owens guy, he was like, he said, can we put some disinfectant and,
right.
inject everybody? And I mean, come on now. Like,
right.
That was the most, I'm sorry.
That was bad.
I will never. This will go down in history as the most craziest shit ever. Like, I can never get over none of that shit. And I was like, did this man really say that? He did not say that. And then everybody's just sitting there like they didn't hear it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Oh, and I felt so bad for those doctors and researchers who were there, because he even sat there and asked them, we can look into that, right? And they're like, yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah, because they literally did not want to get fired, tell the president no.
That's right.
But, sometimes you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was literally some dumb shit. Like, no.
That's right. And I think for me, it's been a breath of fresh air from the standpoint of, like you were saying, we're not constantly negatively in the news, especially on the international stage, let alone the national stage, but the international stage. And I shouldn't have to hear about impending crisis after impending crisis after impending crisis. And we could talk about, he did this and he did that. I mean, like I said, I have no problem giving credit where credit is due. He gave more money to NASA. He said he would, and he did. Credit. Obama said he would, and then he cut NASA's budget. No credit there. And the news didn't pick that up. But but at the same time, I still don't want a president who's constantly going half-cocked, right? The president needs to be more even keel than that. Yeah.
I'm right along with you. I feel like, you give credit where it's due. And, if they didn't do it, they didn't do it. I don't care how Obama, and I don't like it just because he was black.
Right.
I like some of his, some of the things he did. And there's some things that I felt like he could have did that he didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I still have a big issue with certain things, especially when Obama was in office, and I still have issues with Joe Biden. I feel like one of my biggest issues right now that I feel is a form, and this goes back into like the racism and slavery in a way, is that this is another thing of slavery, just in a digital sense, or even just a money sense, that they're not fixing the problem with these loans.
Yeah.
You know, in other places, education is free.
Mm-hmm.
But here we have to pay for education and everybody's in debt. And you know that there are people struggling, and yet you have not done any fixing. I'm not saying just wipe everybody's shit totally. You know, I'm like, because you're losing money. I get it. It's about money. But when you have an opportunity to help America and you're all about trying to help America, you're not really helping America. You're all about helping you guys' pockets. And as they always say, the richer get richer and the poorer get poorer. And I just feel like America is struggling right now with this crisis. And this is a big crisis. And it's only going to get worse.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people are a part of that. And I hate to be the one a part of that, but wow, like, it's not affordable. You know, it's like you're stuck in it forever. You're never getting out of this debt. The same thing with credit cards.
Right.
But it's like you're never getting out of this debt. They keep piling interest on top of interest. The interest rates are ridiculous, you know, and there's no way that you can afford, like, be able to pay this at an affordable rate. There's no way. And then you know that you're going to die still having this over your head. And it makes no sense how you say you care about Americans when you really don't. And that to me is another form of slavery, because you're stuck in something you're never getting out. You're a slave to it.
Right. Well, and definitely to your point. So if I am poor and I cannot break free of that poverty because I can't go to college, get a good job, then, I mean, what else is it? Or if I am middle class and my parents, as a result, can't pay because they have multiple kids for my college, now I'm stuck in debt for 10, 20, 30 years, depending on the individual and how much money they took on. And so many jobs require, especially high-paying jobs, require degrees.
Yep.
It is ludicrous. And as you said, many other countries have college free. The United States used to have college free. And when your parents and my parents were growing up, college was either free or cheap, depending on how old your parents are.
Yeah.
And when I say cheap, I mean dirt cheap. And that's because they were getting all those they'd get money from the federal government and they'd get money from the states. But what's happened is the federal government has been cutting the budget since the 1980s so hard it's not funny. And so they trickle less down to the states. So the states first tried raising their taxes, but then they got forced to depress their taxes. So the universities, the state universities, your public universities got less and less and less funding. Your schools, kindergarten, high school, all that good stuff, they all got less money from the federal government and from the states. And so that money has to come from somewhere, which is where your property taxes start getting raised. And your local communities start having to raise their taxes to pay for all this stuff. And what people don't realize is that creates then pockets of wealth. Whereas before they started doing that, wealth was much more evenly, much better distributed than it is today. Because when the federal government collects all those taxes and then doles it out, it's able to do so with a much wider net than when your city or town collects the taxes. Because then the money only goes to your city or town. I mean, if you live in an area that is not like Beverly Hills, you should be screaming about this. Because, the only people who really made out from all of this were the people who lived in the Poconos, the people who live in Beverly Hills, the people who live in these really wealthy communities, because their money stays in their area. Their money is no longer going to help pay for your children's education, my children's education, for our college, for our roads. I don't know if you've ever driven up in this part of the state, but if you go like along, what is that, 6, US 6, Route 6, I mean, that road is bad. That road is terrible. And it's even worse now.
It's always bad over here. So, I mean, I don't understand. Like, you see construction. The construction will start in the summer. and then it will not end until like 3 years later.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what are we paying for? And then you think about the cars that you buy all these nice cars, and the next thing you know, the time I bought it, the day that I bought it, I probably messed up my struts or spring on my car through these stupid ass roads. Like, and where's my money going?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking all this money from me, and it's not actually paying for shit. It's just going back in their pockets and helping their situation, not helping us. And you're not really for the people. You're for yourself. The people sitting in Congress that, I didn't understand it first. They're all about making money and bettering yourself and not bettering America.
Isn't it telling when they're all millionaires?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then they get there to sit there to say how things should be done with us.
Yes.
When really it's supposed to be the people that, basically governs things, but it's not. It's the people in the Congress sitting there talking and arguing about what should happen to black people and everybody else. Who are you to tell us what we should be able to do?
Right.
I don't get it. And I'm not saying there should be no rules, but without the people in America and hardworking people, there wouldn't be any.
Right.
So I don't think they always think about that.
I think you're exactly right. We are the reason why they have the cushy jobs, and we're also the reason why the wealthy are so wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Bezos made his money off the backs of an awful lot of people, as did Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And what they do is they then, just like Rockefeller, etc., they wall it off so that they retain all that money, all that wealth. And a lot of people say, oh, well, they deserve it. They deserved to be so wealthy, to have billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. But no, because if you look at it, Steve Jobs' family was very well-to-do. Donald Trump's family was very well-to-do. Bill Gates' family was very well-to-do. Jeff Bezos' family, none of them are poor. They don't start off poor. You have to go back to like Carnegie to find someone who was truly poor and rose up out of it. But Carnegie did it by literally beating and killing people. Literally.
It's a crazy world we live in, but again, to this rock situation, racism, systemic racism in America. And when you are calling a rock racist, then you really have a problem. There's a bigger problem than the rock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. The Rock is not racist.
No, again, The Rock is not racist. The Rock himself is not racist.
That's right.
Disclaimer again, we're talking about a rock and not The Rock. But I would like to end off with a few valid points, if you made, Duran, about the topic and what you think that could better the situation, or things that we could probably do in the future to better the situation. We know that it's not going to change anything, but just some things that people should actually consider.
I think Morgan Freeman laid it out extremely well.
It's great.
Yes. Oh, I love it. He's fantastic. Yes. When he sat there and he said, the way to end this is if you stop calling me a black man and I stop calling you a white man. We have to stop the divisions. We have to stop dividing ourselves and creating little groups. And you see it. I see it online. I see it with some of the political parties I've been a part of. And they'll sit there and they'll divide themselves. And they try to win on a scoring system. Not on points, but on a scoring system. I am non-binary, non-conforming, Native American, so on and so forth. And they'll string together as many as they can. And that doesn't help anyone. That's not proper discourse. We need to go back to having proper discourse where you win on the merits of your argument. And you lose on the deficits of your argument. If your argument was bad, then you lose. If it was illogical, if you made logical fallacies, so on and so forth, and it's just flat out wrong, you lose. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not be special. We need to stop the divisions and stop creating a day and a month and a week for everyone. I mean, your history doesn't fit in a month.
No.
My history doesn't fit in a month. Nobody's history fits in a month.
And it's not a holiday. We're celebrating, when you're celebrating different holidays, you're celebrating a lot of people's, efforts and death and different things that does not do the holiday justice. Yes. We don't need a holiday to talk about it. If you want to just make a holiday just to make a holiday, but don't make a holiday off my ancestors or people that died for, this cause and stuff like that. So it just doesn't make any sense. But with that being said, not only, getting rid of the division and stop dividing each other due to race and color, but that all lives matter, and it's not just your life. It's not just your clique or your community or whatever you want to. Just matters. Every life matter, and not all people are bad, but every life matter. And if you consider only one particular race as their life matter, or that being the justification, then basically what makes you different from anybody else? Right. Anybody else that's judging or has hatred in their heart or racist, then what makes you different from those people that are racist and throwing stones and casting stones at other people? Like, that doesn't make you any different.
Right. I completely agree. We as a people need to come to a point where we see past the facade. And that's really, I mean, how you have your hair, how your skin is, how you trim your eyebrows.
He called that out.
I did.
This is Ron Neal's famous favorite thing to do.
I'm not going to say what I first thought when I saw it. Anyway.
Some people say that I look like a cat. I was like, does cat actually cut? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, crazy. Well, maybe they're saying you're a crazy cat. They're down with that slang from the 60s.
Crazy cat. Yeah, cat all right.
That's right.
But so
we need to just, we as a country need to calm down. Calm down. I mean, did you see there was an interesting, the article was race baiting and it was clickbaiting, and it sat there and was like, a white supremacist militia confronts Black Lives Matter activists. Yeah. And I watched it, and first of all, that's not what was going on. Secondly, it was actually very peaceful. And that was how the conversation should be. The two groups were actually talking. They were talking. They weren't yelling. They were like, oh, yeah, we're against police violence. We're against, when cops are bad apples and we think they should be rooted out. And we don't advocate, keeping them safe or anything like that. They should be prosecuted like everyone else. It was a beautiful thing to watch. I watched it. I was like, this is how this conversation is supposed to. No one was screaming, oh, you're offending me because, you're this or I'm that, or, how my hair looks, or I have 3 pairs of pants on. I don't know. I don't even get this stuff anymore. That's how this conversation is supposed to go. And this goes something we talked about a while ago. Just sitting down and listening. We need to stop with the division and assuming that white people don't have anything to offer. They've never experienced this or that.
I mean, everybody in the world has something to offer. That's why we're here. Yeah. Even the bugs have something to offer.
That's right.
Like everything here. Well, yeah. I don't know. I haven't tried any bugs, but I'm just saying that every single thing is here for a reason, and we all contribute to the society. But what we're doing now is tearing down society. We're tearing down each other just to bring yourself up, and that's not the point. The point is that we all need to come together. It's never going to happen. Yeah. But I think if we did, the world would be a lot safer and a better place. But not going to happen.
I am waiting for that kumbaya moment when we stop having countries per se and it's more one giant thing, because there really is no reason for it. I mean, why the border between the United States and Mexico? Why?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
My ancestors have been going back and forth across that line since before any European stepped foot on that soil. Why are we suddenly blocked?
Why were we going to have a wall to Jericho?
Right. Yes.
It didn't make any sense. Like, what
doesn't work?
You're just making it worse. Mm-hmm. And even excluding immigrants. Mm-hmm. The people from around the world is what America. People coming from different areas, bringing different cultures and different languages and different everything is what makes America's really great. Yes. Because, if you've never been to China, I'm not saying the Chinese food is the same the way it is really in China here. But I'm saying you have people that may bring that stuff over, right, or bring their things that they've done, like, so you can understand and get their culture, and you may like it, yes, but without having that, that diversity, there is no America. Yes. America is great because of diverse things you see in America, and people can come over here and make things out of anything. Yes. They can make their own business, do different things. So that's what makes America great. Yeah. So America is great because of the division, like the diversity, not because of the division.
Right. Yes. We were built on that. And you can say whatever you want. That is what our country was founded on. And we have to actually go back to recognizing and cherishing that, because that makes us very different than, I'll say it again, France, where they try to, nail that out. Japan, where they try to nail that out. They want everyone to look the same, everyone to act the same, everyone to think the same for all intents and purposes. That's not the United States, and it never has been, and I hope it never is.
No, and as long as we have that, diversity, we're always going to be good. They're always going to be great. So that's what I think that makes America great. It's not about the money or just the so-called freedom that you so-called have, but it's the diversity and division, like the division that you have in there, but not dividing each other. Right. That makes it that. It's just the diverse amount of people that are here. Right. And the different things you learn from different people. So I think that's what makes it great. And it brings a lot of, think about it. How would you know about certain food groups if you didn't get it from different places? Right. Or what's healthy, or what could be implemented into society today? Like, how would you know? Because America didn't, as you can see, they don't have great ways of eating. Right. I'm just saying that as a one particular reference. I'm like, there's a lot of benefits of having a diverse culture.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, you look at all of the foods that have come to the United States that we enjoy every single day. That it is amazing, absolutely amazing. And if you think about it from a workplace perspective, the different people are just like the different foods. And that's why I've sat there and I've always said, I'd love to see more women in IT who want to be in IT, and that's critical. They have to want to be in IT. I'd love to see more women in IT for the same reason I'd love to see more any other group, because women make up 50% of the population. And so long as, for whatever reason, they don't embark on this path and embrace it and love it, the ones who could do well don't and can't. And our industry suffers because of that. And the same thing, it doesn't matter what they look like, what they sound like, who they are. If we had more people in IT who felt welcome and wanted to be there and could make it their home, our industry would be so much better than what it is today, which is saying a lot, because it's pretty nice.
And in that being said, I'm not saying we would limit the amount of breaches, but we would be able to at least defend the nation, and also defend different companies if we had more people. The lack of people, and let's go back to that just to end that off real quick. 99% of this industry are frauds. Yeah. Okay. I say that because a lot of them don't really know what they're doing. The same way with computer science. You have to weed these people out. They're not as good as they they say they are. And especially some of the women are coming in. I'm not saying just being negative. I'm just saying that the women that are coming in aren't doing it for the money. They're not coming in and having that passion and wanting to do that.
Right.
And it makes it look bad for other people. And then the next thing about this whole thing is it's racism there.
Right.
You know, because it's predominantly in this field supposed to be white people predominantly kind of control this field. Nobody else can be as good. Nobody can be that great. No minorities, no different the opposite sex. Nobody can be better than the males and predominantly white people in this industry. And that's not true. And again, everybody thinks differently. So when you bring in different cultures, they all have a different mindset and a different way of looking at things. So think about how vast we would be and so far ahead with more and diverse culture in the industry that, you know, we don't have now. You know, different mindsets, different, you know, creativity. And that's some things that we're lacking because a lot of people today in this field doesn't have that creativity and also doesn't have that passion.
Right.
But they also scare away the people that could.
Right.
You know, be able to really contribute to this industry.
Right. When I was in college, it started out 50% male and 50% female. By the time I reached third year, there were about 10 females in my class. By the time I graduated, there were none. 0. They all left. And yeah, you got 2?
Two, literally, and they weren't that good, but it was 2 women. And when I got in computer science, there was like, and I'm going to say it was more males than women. And I may have had about 5 women, and there was tons of males. There was like 20 people in a class. Then you get to, like you said, the second, third year, definitely the third year, you only get looking at a good 6 to maybe 6 people, 7 people. And out of those 7 people, there's 2 women. And I graduate. And guess what? Only about 4 of them graduated.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, that was another good point to bring up. Most of the class thinned out. It wasn't just females. It's just females thinned out more than males. But the class sizes, I mean, they went from hundreds in a hall to really tiny. And it wasn't because the classes broke out and, you know, they had more sessions at the higher levels. It was because there were fewer people. I mean, just all these people left. And I am glad that people find their passion and chase their passion. I don't want someone in this field who isn't going to enjoy it, isn't going to be passionate about it, isn't going to love it and just breathe it, because that doesn't help us. Especially because our industry, like engineering, requires that. You have to have that. But at the same time, I really want to see more women, more minorities in, because that is a bigger pool. I just want them to want to be there and enjoy it and love it and embrace it.
Yeah. I think another issue with that whole aspect, especially when it came to this field, is that the teachers spent more time enjoying than actually making it interesting for people to stay.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make it interesting, not as hard. Like, it's learning shouldn't be super difficult. Like, there's going to be concepts you don't understand, but you want to find ways to make it interesting for people to come in and enjoy it. Like, I'll give an example. Did not really care for programming, but I knew there was something that I needed to have. And I enjoyed building things. But the problem with computer science in these fields is that they made it overly complicated. One thing that it's not that complicated, overly complicated. And like, you may be different learning. I learned differently. I like drawings and pictures. I remember, I have a photographic memory, so I like to see certain things, and you have to teach me a certain way for me to understand it. So because I don't understand it doesn't mean that I'm stupid, doesn't mean that I don't get it, but that makes me not enjoy it. And I think that's what happened with women. I would see women come in and they'll be like, oh, this is interesting. I like building stuff. Then you get to the second year, don't get to the data structures and algorithms and all these other shit. And then it just goes like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not what I signed up for. I just wanted to build an application. And they make it overly complicated, something that is not that complicated to do. When you really get to the last stage of your, when you're about to graduate, and that could be your 4th or 5th year, then you start really putting things together and notice it's not as complicated as they make it. But they literally do that to weed it out. One of the teachers told me that they do that to literally weed people out. Why? I mean, you're literally weeding out people that have some very creative thought process. I mean, there was one girl who was really creative, and she loved building things, but she just could not get certain topics, and it discouraged her, and she left out. She wanted to do business.
Yeah.
She decided to do that. And I'm just like, you literally lost some brilliant minds because you wanted to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Same way in security.
Yeah.
You literally lose brilliant people because you want to be an asshole. You want to show that you're so much superior and better when you're really not. And that's just your insecurity of yourself. There's some insecurities in yourself. There's some people are doing that you see somebody that may be better than you. It's nothing wrong with that. You can use that to get better yourself.
Great.
But that's an issue.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, I mean, those are just some of the things I saw. We just need to stop judging each other, and we all need to come together and be one, and things will be a lot better. But until then, that's probably not going to happen. I'm sorry to kill everybody's dream, but it's a good way to think about things, that hopefully that one day we will come together, and it won't be just Black lives or Native American lives. It'll be an all lives matter, and it won't be looked at as a derogatory thing. Right. But with that being said, this is our time. I am Ranyo.
I am Duran.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for other episodes that will arrive in the future. Until then, you guys have a good one.
Have fun.